Although this happened when I was 7, I still have nightmares about it today. I was never really into doll stuff, more of a tomboy type. So when my stepdad brought me home a huge story handcrafted dollhouse from an antique fair, I was both surprised and equally amazed. I quickly fell in love with it. I would play with it for hours with small dolls I built for myself just so I could act out tiny family dramas in the dollhouse for fun. The true drama began one night when the dollhouse began playing with me. It must have been the middle of the night when I was woke up by the sound of a quiet scratching. It was near pitch dark in my bedroom, but I could dimly make out a few things from the bit of light coming in through my window. Wide awake now, I stared out into the darkness, listening. Again, I could just make out the sound of scratching from the other side of the room. I sat up and focused on where I thought the sound might be coming from. Scritch, scritch. It came again, and I could swear it was coming from the direction of the dollhouse, which sat off in the far corner of the room. I waited. Scritch, scritch. Suddenly I heard the louder sound of paper tearing. I leaped from my bed and turned the light on, and it was probably a half second, and the sound stopped. Cautiously, I approached the dollhouse, peering inside. I didn't immediately see anything in there or anything different, so I knelt down and examined the rooms more carefully. At first I didn't see anything. Then along the edge of the paper door frames, I saw small tears along the edge. Those were definitely not there before. I slept the rest of the night with the lights on and didn't hear any more unusual sounds. The next morning, I told my dad about it. At first he teased me that I was just imagining it, but he could see that I was upset and totally serious about it. So he suggested we get a nightlight. I kind of felt stupid given that I was 7 now and not really prone to being afraid of the dark anymore. Then he suggested that he could even hook up the dollhouse itself to be a nightlight by adding some wiring and a small light bulb. That sounded good to me. He spent a few hours in the afternoon and fixed it up. That evening, when I was getting ready for bed, I did appreciate the soft glow coming from the antique. It really made me feel better, and I fell asleep in no time at all. A few hours later, I awoke to the sound of scratching. I listened for a few minutes, then it stopped. Still laying down, I turned to face the dollhouse. I could see the light was coming from inside it, the soft rays that filled the corner of the room with harsh shadows. I just laid there, staring at the dollhouse, waiting for the sound to start again. It didn't. Instead, something crossed through the light, moving the shadows around. From inside the dollhouse. A shiver ran down my back as the light shifted again. Something was moving around in there. Freaking out, I turned my back to the dollhouse, pulled the covers over my head, and shut my eyes tight. I had to be imagining it. I forced myself to keep my eyes closed and ignore it. I started humming to myself in an attempt to distract me, and just hoped I could fall back asleep. Eventually I did. A sharp pain in my side woke me up. I opened my eyes, but couldn't see much. There was no light in my room. The light in the dollhouse was out, and I could barely see again from the light from the window. Even worse, I couldn't move. My arms and legs were tied down. Black strands tightly wound across my body and held me in place in my bed. I tried to sit up, but couldn't. With some effort, I was able to move my head to look down. Horrified, I saw several tiny humanoid creatures scurrying across me. They were thin, gray in color and all disjointed, like tiny doll figures, but they had no faces. Terrible and nasty. One even stood right in the center of my chest. I freaked. I started screaming. Not in the "hey dad, I need a drink of water" sort of way, but in a blood-curdling, "I think I'm going to die" scream. The creatures quickly darted off me, after what seemed like minutes, but was only a few seconds. My dad burst into the room, turning on the light. His face went white, seeing me tied up on the bed. He looked at me in confusion. I just whispered one word, "Dollhouse." Immediately he started smashing it with his feet and his fist. Pieces were flying everywhere. As he broke up the dollhouse, the sticky black strands snapped and disappeared. Once the antique was destroyed enough and I was free, I ran sobbing into his arms. He held me tight and we both ran out of the room. In the morning, we burned the remains of the dollhouse in the fireplace. He apologized for buying the dollhouse, but I know it wasn't his fault. We don't really talk about it. I've never gotten over this, but we've also never seen those creatures again. I hope we never will.